Hello everyone and welcome to my first episode of Unwind and Knit with me. This is really exciting and I hope you're excited too. I hope you've got a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and you're knitting, and let's talk knitting. First of all, I want to start off with obviously what I'm wearing. This is a little cardigan by Libby Johnson. She goes also by Truly Myrtle, and any viewers that I've got here in New Zealand will know of Libby Johnson. She's an amazing designer, and every couple of years she brings out an amazing piece that we all get on board with, and she creates knit-alongs and a lot of hype. But this is her little cardigan called Rebel Rebel. It's a little cropped cardigan and I've done it with 3/4 sleeves. I wear it a lot. I wear it a lot with jeans and dresses, and it's one of my go-to little cardigans. So I thought I'd start my first episode with this one because it is one that I wear a lot. I did this a couple of years ago in a, here it is here, in a 4-ply sock yarn, and I did it in Malabrigo. And I happened to pick this yarn up overseas, but I do know that a lot of our local yarn shops now do sell Malabrigo, and the colours, I'm going to show you a close-up, are just amazing. There's a lot of sort of real jewel tones, purples, blues, orange, rust. Yeah, it's a really amazing yarn. I find it, it doesn't pill, it doesn't fluff, it's just a really good yarn. But I also think any 4-ply sock yarn would do a Rebel Rebel really well. I haven't got a copy or a colour copy of the patterns, but I will put it in my show notes so you can go and have a look. It is one also that I'll do again, and I'm sure that if you're watching and you've done a Rebel Rebel, you'll know what I mean. It's a sort of cardigan that once you've done it once, you'll do it again. I have seen a few with long sleeves, some that are a bit longer, some with woollier wool, more of a winter cardigan, but it is one of those patterns that you can have a play around with to suit your wardrobe, to suit yeah, how you want to wear it. That Malabrigo, I do know it's available from Loop and Pine in Auckland, and I also know it's available from Willoughby's yarn store in Rangiora, but I'll put that in the show notes. But worth having a play with. It's not a New Zealand yarn, and I do try to support New Zealand yarns, but every now and then it's nice to use something a bit different. Yeah, so that's what I'm wearing today. It's my Rebel Rebel. I do next want to talk about my finished objects. I do have quite a bit on the needles, and I have a couple of finished objects, so I'll share those with you. The most recent finished object that I did was this. You may have seen this on my Instagram, but it's the Ranunculus. Isn't that colour amazing? So Ranunculus is a really quick knit. The pattern says to use 6mm needles, but I actually use 5.5. I didn't want it too airy. I wanted the fabric to be a little bit tighter, so I went down a needle size. And the yarn that I used is from Blue Sky Fibres. Now I purchased this from Skeins in Hawke's Bay. Last year they had it on a sale. It might have been a clearance sale, so I'm not sure if that's still available. The colour's called Papaya. Isn't it just beautiful? And this papaya, it's a 50% alpaca and a 50% silk. So it's a really drapey type of wool, which I think is just perfect for this Ranunculus. You can see that it's really quite airy and drapey, and I think it'll just be perfect for a summer top. Once again, you can use any 4-ply to do Ranunculus. I've seen under projects in Ravelry, there are so many different versions of Ranunculus. I would like to do it again, I think in a real earthy tone, like a beige cream, like a sand colour. I think my wardrobe's got a space for one of those, so that'll probably be in my queue of things to cast on soon, will be a new Ranunculus. The other thing I've got completed are some socks. I do like knitting socks. I know some people don't, but I will talk about my socks. I finally got my husband to agree to wear some hand knitted socks. He doesn't wear any hand knits, but I did knit him a pair of socks and he loved them. So I ended up knitting in 3 pairs of socks. So I went through a phase, well, not a phase, I needed 3 pairs of socks, but they were all in blues and browns and real sort of practical colours. So I was really itching to knit a pair of socks in a brighter colour. I've knitted these, and these are actually a size 12. They're huge. These are for my daughter's boyfriend, and he's got a birthday coming up. So I decided to knit him a pair of socks. He's a big boy, so needless to say it's a size 12. What I did do, I did a 1x1 rib bind off, a loose bind off, but then I did a couple of rows of just knit garter stitch, and it's got a little roll edge. You might be able to see that on there. And that's just to make sure that it's not too tight, because yeah, you don't want your socks too tight because then you can't pull them up. And these sock blockers I actually got from Outlaw Yarn. You can see there, Outlaw. But yeah, I love my sock blockers. These are the large size, and I have a medium size which I use for myself and my husband and my daughter. But yeah, so these are just in opal self-striping. Amazing sock yarn. I just love opal self-striping because it's always, the colours are amazing, and the features, you just want to keep knitting when you knit with self-striping yarn. I feel you do anyway, so they knit up quite quickly. This pattern is a pattern that I use all the time, and it's called Toe-Up Socks with a Difference, and it's just a really good basic, what do they call it, a vanilla sock pattern. But that's also available on Ravelry, and I'll put that in my show notes. But it's called Toe-Up Socks. Toe-Up Socks, sorry, Toe-Up Socks with a Difference. So I finished those recently, so that's really quite exciting. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is my whips or works in progress, of which generally there's a few. Now I have had a bit of a change. I did make notes for my first episode on what I was going to show and what I was going to talk about. And one of the main works in progress that I wanted to talk about was this one here. You can see that it's called Misurina. And it's a summer top, short sleeve crop top. It's done in the pattern calls for a 4-ply yarn, merino and linen, which is a nice drapey sort of summer blend. But I chose just a 4-ply merino. And the reason I did that is because living here in Christchurch, it doesn't get that hot. And through, I think, spring and autumn, we get a lot of nice days where you want to wear short sleeves, but you also need something still a little bit warm. So I thought it'd be really nice to do a short sleeve top that's also a bit warm as well. So this is what I cast on, was Misurina. Here it is here. I have got that on waste yarn. You may have seen this on my Instagram as well. Now I've used, the wool I've used is Kiwiana. Now Kiwiana, the dyer, it's an indie dyer yarn. Her name's Rebecca, and she's from here in Christchurch. And if you're from New Zealand, you've probably seen Rebecca and her yarn. She does go to a lot of wool fests. And I've got to say I'm a fan of her yarn, especially her 4-ply high twist. But I loved this colour. I haven't got anything in my wardrobe in yellow. And for the contrast colour, you may recognise, I got from my stash, and it's this Malabrigo that I'm wearing with my Rebel. So that's my contrast colour, and I love it. I really am happy with it. I love the colours, and I think it's something that I'll be really comfortable to wear. But what I did do, and what I highly recommend you doing, is when you get to a point in a top-down jersey, is to put it on waste yarn and try it on. Now that's one of the big advantages of knitting top down, is that you can stop as you go and try it on. And it really only takes a couple of minutes, and I know a lot of people that don't do it, but I really think for the couple of minutes that it takes, it's well worth it. Because what I did was I tried this on, and it doesn't fit me very well. I'm a bit disappointed with the fit, and it's no one's fault but my own. But because I love it so much, I'm actually going to unpull it. I'm going to rip the whole thing out and start again. So what I'm not happy with is the neckline. I like a wide neckline. I don't like things that are too close to my skin on my neck, and I find that this neckline just hasn't got enough stretch in it and it sits up too high. Tough decision to make for any of you that have ever done it, but it's well worth it. The time and the money that we put into knitting hand knit garments, as you know, is really precious, the time and the money. So you never want to knit something that you're not going to love and that you're not going to wear. So often my rule of thumb is, do I love it? And if I love it, I keep going. But if I have that niggling feeling that there's something that's not quite right, I think it's worth starting again. So this work in progress is going to be an unstarted item. Probably this afternoon. I'm going to rip it all out. I'm going to start again. So I will show you how I get on with this when I redo it. I am going to do a looser. I'm going to make the neckline a bit looser and go up a size of needle. The rest of it is okay, and the rest of it does fit okay, but yeah, it's just not quite right. So I'm going to unpull it. So I'll let you know how I go with that. Generally, my rule of thumb is that I don't drink. I don't have a glass of wine while I'm knitting, but I think I can break the rule for when I'm actually unpulling. I think it deserves a glass of wine, so I might do that tonight over a glass of wine and rewind the wool and cast it on and start all over again. But it is a beautiful pattern, and I would recommend it for anyone that wants to do a summer type jersey. The colour work is beautiful. I love doing colour work, especially when it's only one colour. It knits up really quickly, and I do enjoy it. I do enjoy this particular pattern and the wool that I'm using. So yeah, thumbs up to pulling it out and starting all over again. Now, my other work in progress has actually been a work in progress for a couple of months, and I love it, and I don't know what happened, but I just stopped working on it, and I really have to make an effort to get it finished because I'm sort of over 2/3. Excuse me while I get my bundle of things. The pattern is Pink Fizz by Andrea Mowry. You may have seen this pattern. I think it's a pretty popular sort of pattern. One of the ladies in one of the knit groups I go to was knitting this, and I loved it. I fell in love with it and thought I need one of those in my wardrobe, and it was going to be a project on my list. And a short time after I saw it, I did a trip to Auckland, and I went to the beautiful yarn shop in Auckland called Lupine. And I bought the yarn, and the yarn I chose was Prosper yarn, and this is a New Zealand indie dyer, and that is, let me have a look at my notes, I wrote it all down. So it's 70% merino and 30% linen. Like, it is beautiful, and the colour is beautiful as well. And I am double stranding that with this mohair. Now, I know that Skeins in Hawke's Bay have brought out some mohair, so they'd have some really good combinations to do this pattern, the Pink Fizz. So I will show you, I have done quite a bit. See it there? There's the lace work. It has a split hem down the bottom. It's the back there, the split hem. You divide, it was bottom up, and then you divide at the sleeves and do up to the neckline. So you can see I have really done quite a lot, and I really need to get it finished. I think what happened is I started doing some colour work, and I prefer colour work over lace work, and I think this is why my Pink Fizz has taken a bit of a back seat. But as you can see, it's just beautiful. The colour's beautiful, the yarn's beautiful. The pattern is easy. There was a few little bits that I wasn't sure on, but I eventually worked through those. But yeah, I don't think even when I finish it that I'm going to get a lot of wear out of it this season, because I think it will be quite a warm bit of clothing. What I did do, I haven't got it with me, but I did swatch, and when I swatched I used the 4mm recommended needles, and then when I looked at the fabric I thought the fabric was just a little bit too dense. I wanted a little bit lighter, so I went up to a 4.5 because I think it will be such a warm jersey that I just needed it to be a little bit lighter and a little bit airy. So yes, swatching is a thing, and I do swatch. I know a lot of people, it's always a contentious sort of conversation, but most of the time, especially if I've invested a lot of money in the yarn, I will swatch because it's such a big investment and you want the best result. And with this particular one, I'm glad I swatched because, like I said, I went up from a 4mm recommended needle to a 4.5. Excuse me. I did bring in a coffee with me. I hope you've all got a cup of tea or coffee. So that's my pink Fizz, which is another work in progress. And this is so bad. I have so many work in progresses that it's just ridiculous. But I hope when I see you next time for my next podcast, I will have started Misurina again. And I really hope that my pink Fizz will feature as a finished item, not as a work in progress. And the one I'm going to show you now, I started a few weeks ago, and I'm hoping this will be a finished item next time as well. But this is Floozy 2. Now, I'm sure a lot of you will recognise this pattern. That's our lovely Libby Johnson here in New Zealand. Floozy 2 is another pattern that Libby designed that I know a lot of people, knitters that I know, have all done it. They all got on board and did the knit along. I do have one that I knitted a couple of years ago that I'm sure I will wear one day on one of my podcasts. I did it in what was called radioactive green, really nice. But I wanted to do another one, and I've chosen to do it in black. I wear a lot of black. I feel comfortable in black. It's not always the easiest colour to knit with. You've got to make sure you're in the right light. But I did cast on a Floozy 2 in black. And isn't the contrast colour amazing? I don't know what's come over me, but all of a sudden I love pink. I've never been a pink person. And this pink came out of my stash. I didn't go out and purchase it, but I knew that I wanted this pink against this black. So that's it there. I'm just a few inches into the body. I've divided already for the sleeves. Now, I'm loving this, and what I do, I only decided this last night. I am actually going to knit this as a short sleeve jersey, a bit like the Misurina. I'm going to do a short sleeve and I'm going to crop the body a little bit. And the reason for that is, like I said, we have 6 months of the year, probably most of our spring and our autumn, where we can get away with short sleeves. It's warm enough for short sleeves, but you still want something that's a little bit warm. So I'm going to do this as a short sleeve top, and I'm going to crop it a little bit. So that's going to be my modification, and I'm really looking forward to it. I think this is something that I'll wear a lot as a short sleeve top. So I will show you that. Hopefully it'll be a finished item on our next podcast. The wool I used, I bought a couple of years ago, and I really lashed out. It's really a luxurious wool. The black wool, it's from Fibre to Go. See that there? Now, Fibre to Go is another New Zealand indie dyer. The wool, she calls it her Primo, and it's 100% merino, but it's actually from Italy. So it's an Italian wool, but it's hand dyed here by Fibre to Go. Now, I think you may be able to see, being black, it might be a little bit difficult, but the stitch definition of this yarn, you can't see it that well. Oh, that's not too bad. Yeah, you'll see the stitch definition is amazing. Beautiful stitch definition. Very little pilling or fluffing, which suits me. I just don't like wool that pills and fluffs. So I highly recommend this yarn. If you really want to lash out and buy yourself a luxurious yarn with really nice stitch definition, I would have a look at Fibre to Go. And like I said, that's called her Primo. It's from her Primo range. Yeah, and she's a New Zealand dyer. I will put the show notes for that yarn in the notes below if you're interested. If you're from New Zealand, you probably know of Fibre to Go. She's another one that goes to a lot of our wool fests and our knitting festivals. Yeah, we've got so many talented dyers here. We are really quite lucky. I thought I'd just talk about a few things that are in my line of things to cast on, and they're things that I do hope to cast on over the next couple of weeks. I said before I like knitting socks, and I tend to knit a basic sock, toe-up socks with a difference, quite a vanilla sock, quite good. But I come across this pattern on Ravelry, and it was a free pattern, so I thought I'd share it with you because it actually looks really quite interesting. Now, it's called Brainless, and you can see there's some cabling up the foot and then some really nice detail around the heel. So I'm going to try that. I found some yarn in my stash. It's this yarn here. It is a sock yarn, and it's by Union Fibre. And Union Fibre, once again, a Kiwi indie dyer, and it's on one of her sock wool bases. It's just got, it's a pretty colour. It's sort of, I don't even know what you'd call it, but it's a light plummy, pinky colour. But yeah, so I thought I'd try a different sock pattern. You just get in a bit of a rut and you knit the same ones all the time. But I did want to share it with you as well because it's nice to find a pattern that's free. So that's it there. It's called Brainless. I don't know how brainless you have to be to knit it. I'll soon find out. But so that's one of my things that I do plan on casting on shortly. And I've got two other things that I want to share with you that are going to be new cast-ons. You've probably noticed I'm on a bit of a roll or a theme with my short sleeve tops. I think I've been watching a lot of podcasts from Europe, and because they're in their summer, they're knitting a lot of short sleeve t-shirts, and I think that's where I've been inspired. Although we're in the middle of winter, I've been inspired to do some summer knitting, and I think the inspiration has come from those podcasts. But I've come across this pattern. It's called Kuutar T. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it's a short sleeve top with some lace work around the top. Yeah, that's knitted top down. And the yarn I'm going to use is Bellissimo St. George. Now this is a 50% cotton, 50% merino. I haven't done this blend before, but I think it'll make a really nice summer t-shirt. I got this yarn from Skeins in Hawke's Bay last year on a sale. So I'm not sure if there's still stock in it or whether it was on sale because they were actually clearing it out. But I have seen this in local yarn stores, so it'd be worth checking your local yarn store. But if not, I'm sure there's lots of cotton merino blends that are suitable for a summer t-shirt. So yeah, Kuutar T, I got that off Ravelry. I'll just see if I can show you that. It's not coming up that well, but the lace work around the top I think just looks amazing, and I think this colour will be a really good colour for me because I wear a lot of jeans and black things. So it'll work really well in my wardrobe. So that's that one. The other one I want to cast on is a basic Raglan. Now I have done this, I've told a lot of people about this pattern. This is a basic Raglan pattern and it's by Locatelli. And that's it there, and it's just called her Basic Raglan. Top down, really easy to follow, a really good fit. It's a sort of pattern that I'll often recommend. You know, people say, oh, my daughter wants an oversized jersey, or my son's off to university and just wants a big oversized sort of jersey. That's the one I always go for, is the Basic Raglan. The yarn I got was again from Rebecca at Kiwi Yarner. That's her card there. And she dyed this wool for me. I'm pretty sure she does have one in similar colour waves on her website. But the pink Fizz I showed you earlier on, it's like a dusty rosy pink. I just fell in love with it, and I just said, that's it, I want to do a Raglan in that same colour. So this is 100% merino base. It's her DK base. I don't do a lot of DK, but have a look at that. Isn't that just gorgeous? It's, yeah, I don't know what you call it. I call it a dusty pink, but it is really, really lovely. So I'm going to knit that up into a basic Raglan. Because it's DK, it's not going to take a long time. I hope to be able to get that done fairly quickly. But what I thought I'd share with you is I've recently I have come across a new app on my computer called Bellin, B-E-L-L-I-N-G. And this app is, at the moment, it's very new, and I think it's only available for Apple. I don't think it's available for Android yet. And one of the main patterns in it is a basic Raglan. And you put in the yarn type you have, the size that you want to do, the shaping you want to do, the type of ribbon that you want to do, and it creates the pattern for you. So you feed in all the information, and at the end it produces a pattern for your specific requirements. So I'm going to try it. I'm going to give it a go, and I'll let you know how I get on. It may be a bit of fun. I know that on this program Bellin, they also have some children's patterns, just basic children's hats, cardigans. They also have beanies and socks. And the same principle applies where you put your details in, the type of wool that you have in your stash, and it creates the pattern for you, which I think is really good if you're trying to work through stash at home, where you've got beautiful wool but you just don't know what pattern to put it with. You can actually go and create your own pattern. So I'll let you know how I get on with that. I'm actually quite excited to try it, to try something new. But if you haven't got access to Bellin and you're not on Apple, I'll let you know if I do hear that it has become available on Android. But if not, that that pattern there, Locatelli's basic Raglan, it's a really good basic pattern, just for a DK Raglan, just for an everyday. Yeah, I can't recommend it highly enough. Actually, every time I've done it, it fits perfectly. It's just a really nice, easy pattern. So that's on my things to do. So that was my Kuutar tee in my cotton and merino, my Raglan in my Kiwi Yarner double knit, and yeah, they were my main two things that I hope to cast on shortly, but also I have to recast on this one, which I don't know if I'm happy about or sad about. I'm happy that I'm going to get it right because I think I'm going to love it, but it's always really sad to put in that much work and then have to unravel it. But I also know that unraveling it is the right thing to do. At the end of the day, we all enjoy knitting, so it just means I get to knit it twice. But I do think you should follow that rule of, do I love it? Is there something wrong with it? Have I made a mistake? Ask yourself those questions. And for me, if I've made a mistake and after 3 or 4 rounds I've forgotten about it, it just blends in. I forget about it. I'm happy to live with it. I call it a design feature. It doesn't have to be a mistake. It can be a design feature. But if it's a mistake that you keep going back to and you keep looking at and it stands out and it's playing on in your mind, well then generally unpull it, start again. I think it's well worth it, and yeah, you'll love the result. It's just worth getting it right at the end of the day. I did want to show you, so things that I've bought new. We had a wool fest here in Christchurch a couple of weeks ago, and that was really exciting. Who doesn't love a wool fest, right? And I come across a wool dyer, an indie dyer, and she's from here in Christchurch, and she calls herself Narrative Yarns. That's it there. And she dyes self-striping yarn, and then there's a wee little contrast for the heel and the toe. And I think she called this one her Apple Blossom. And on my Instagram you can see this yarn before I've wound it into a cake, and it was so pretty. It was so pretty that I had to buy it. I certainly didn't need sock yarn. Excuse me. But yeah, I'm going to keep an eye out. She just does some really nice self-striping yarn. And I know for an indie dyer, it takes a lot of work to do self-striping yarn. It's not something that's quick and easy. So yeah, a lot of respect for people that have got the patience to do that. And because she's local to me, I hope to be able to support her a little bit more. I will just show you quickly as well. This is my little project bag that I use for my socks, and it was done by InStitches, and they do a lot of project bags. They were at some of our wool fests this year, but it's just a really nice size little sock project bag. But I was telling you before, I knitted 3 pairs of socks for my husband, which were in browns and blues, and they were really quite boring. That I just had to cast on something with colour. So I've got these on the needles at the moment. Aren't they so pretty? So this is just an opal self-striping yarn. It's not indie dyed. You can get this in all your local yarn stores, I think, sell you opal. But so pretty. And I'm doing those 2 at a time on one cable using magic loop, which is my go-to method. I've always struggled with DPNs. I'm not good on DPNs at all, but I find the magic loop 2 at a time works perfect for me. So yeah, that's worth a try. So yep, that's that. And that's probably all I've got to show you in the way of knitting. Okay, the other thing I wanted to talk about was changes that I had come across since coming back to knitting. I said in my intro that I probably didn't knit for about 25 years. I was taught as a child, as a lot of us were, by our grandparents. And I thought I knew everything about knitting. I knitted for a long time when I was younger, had all the basic skills to knit. But then when I returned to knitting and I started going across to knit groups, and I watched people knitting with circular needles, using programs like Knit Companion, it was really obvious to me that a lot had changed. Also, knitting top down in the rounds, that was all new to me. So I started on my little journey, and I've just loved it. I love knitting top down. I love knitting in the rounds. I have my my interchangeable Chalgoo needle set, which I love. But what I did want to put out there, because there may be other people out there like myself that maybe have just got back into knitting and are quite overwhelmed with all the changes, I thought I would just talk about a couple of things that are available that you can use. So one that I used often, for example, I knew how to cast on. My nana taught me to cast on. I had a basic cast on that I knew how to do. But when I started knitting these patterns, they started to call for things like cable cast on, or a tubular cast on, or a long tail cast on. Lots of different sorts of cast ons. And I thought, well, I just use my same old normal cast on. But it matters. It makes a difference when a pattern calls for a particular type of method to be used. So on YouTube, there is a lady that does tutorials, and her site's called Very Pink, VERYPINK, and she does tutorials for everything. So quite often, if a pattern calls for a cable cast on, and I can't remember off the top of my head what a cable cast on is, I just go to YouTube and look at her tutorials, and they're amazing. And it's a really good resource because you don't have to remember all these techniques. Like, we can't remember everything, so it is really nice just to be able to double check that you're doing the right thing by using some of these tutorials. The other thing I learnt recently was yarn overs. I knew how to do yarn overs. I've been doing yarn overs forever. But I did a particular pattern and I noticed that the holes in the lace where I did my yarn overs weren't very obvious. They weren't good holes. So I looked at a couple of tutorials for yarn overs and I realised that after all these years I'd actually been doing my yarn overs wrong. And now the results that I'm getting by using the correct method are outstanding. So yeah, I just thought I'd put it out there. Do just check some of these resources like Very Pinks. And if you're not 100% sure on a technique, or you think maybe you need to double check a technique, maybe it's changed or you're doing it wrong, go for it. It's so well worth it. There's just so much out there that we can't all know, and you don't know what you don't know. You just think that your way's the correct way because that's how you've always done it, right? But yeah, it's well worth it to use some of these resources. And the other thing for anybody getting back into knitting is of course Ravelry. If you have not signed up to Ravelry, you have to do it. It's just every pattern ever written in the world is available on Ravelry. It's just an amazing resource that we have that we never used to have. And for you out there that have been knitting for a while, I am probably boring the hell out of you, right? Because you know this stuff. But I thought that with every episode, I would just put a couple of things out there that were new to me 4 or 5 years ago. People had to say to me, Lisa, you have to sign up to Ravelry. Lisa, this is how Ravelry works. This is what you can do. Because I would never have known. I would have still just been, you know, buying my patterns from my local yarn store. Yeah, so it's just really good information, I think, to share. And if you are ever at a knit group and you see ladies that may be doing things, ladies or men, sorry, that may be doing things a little bit old school, introduce them to some of these new things because, like I said, you don't know what you don't know. You think you know everything, but the world of knitting is amazing. There is just so much to do. We're so lucky and we are so privileged. So yeah, use all your resources, but share them with other knitters and make sure that your knitters in your group know about these resources. Yeah, I think that's about all I've got to say on that. I really do appreciate you for joining me for episode 1. I hope I've managed to do okay and I hope my technology works. Please like my podcast and subscribe. I'd love to see you back again. I would like to do these at least fortnightly, but as you know, in New Zealand we've just gone into lockdown and I didn't want to go on about that because I thought really everyone in the world's been in lockdown. It's nothing new, but we are in lockdown, so it's a really good time. I thought it was a really good time to do my first episode because we are all in lockdown. But I do hope to do them fortnightly, but I may even jump on and do the odd one weekly. So do subscribe and then you'll know when I go live. Leave comments if there's anything that you want me to cover. It'd be really good to get your feedback and ideas. And I really look forward to seeing you for podcasts too. So yeah, please like, please subscribe, and please share it with your friends if you think that there's some content that they might find interesting, and hope to see you all next time. Thank you. Bye.